Okay, I'd like to cover the game between Colle and Delvaux, which was played in Con Ternutzen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing all those names right, in 1929. The opening is a Colle system, which I haven't really talked about in the, if you want to look up the game or the opening, it's ECO code D05. So once again, Colle was white and Delvaux was black. So the game started at D4, so it's a queen pawn opening. Once again, the strategy for white is generally to strangle the opponent slowly. This move does release the bishop on C1 and gives the queen greater scope. And Delvaux decides to play D5. And the only really other option, the queen's pawn opening, is to play knight F6. But here, black decides on a strategy of fighting sort of toe for toe in the center. So then Colle plays knight F3. The other, or the most common move, is C4 on the second move, but white can play knight F3 and then play then play C4 on the third move, and you can usually reach a Queen's Gambit decline type opening. So the opening is still not clear at this point, but Colle being Colle, and what he's known for now is the Colle system, so no doubt we're probably going to see a Colle system. Black replies with knight F6, the most common move for after white plays knight F3. Once again, we can still go into a Queen's Gambit decline type game if white plays pawn to C4. But now white plays E3, clearly going for the Colle system. And what the Colle system really is that white plans to play the bishop to D3, the knight to D2, castle kingside, and then bring the rook to, it can bring the rook to E1, and then can also bring the queen to E2 if necessary. And white is building up everything to play the move E4. And once white makes the move E4 after all these developing moves, there'll be this sort of a release of the pieces, almost like a springing a trap. So the key thing is developing for white in the Colle system. It's for developing all the pieces to play this move E4, and the game sort of revolves around playing the key move E4. So white plays E6. Now, if you know your opponent is a Colle player, I don't know if that's an actual term, but black could choose to play the move bishop to F5, knowing that white wants to play bishop to D3 and then just exchange the bishops. Usually the white squared bishop, and for white, tends to be a very powerful attacker. So black could choose to try to get rid of that bishop. But here black sort of closes in this bishop now. So yeah. So now white plays bishop to D3, continuing along with the strategy. And now black plays C5, striking at the center. So a couple options for black in this position that could prove to give white some problems is that if white does nothing, black could sort of exchange these pawns, and then white would not have the E4 pawn to really push, which is sort of a key component. So that goes against white's strategy. And also black could play the move C4, making the bishop move away from this nice diagonal of where the bishop wants to be for a kingside attack here. So white plays c3. What this does, it supports this pawn here. So if black recaptures, or if black captures on d4, then white can just recapture with the c pawn. It also gives the bishop a retreat square. So that move is twofold. Now black plays c6, developing the knight, also adding another attacker to the d4 square. Maybe I should point out that generally in the queen's pawn openings, it's usually a good idea to move your c pawn before you develop your knight, because a lot of times in these queen pawn openings, the c pawn is used to attack the center, and if you develop your knight before moving the c pawn, then you sort of deny yourself the opportunity of attacking the center with the c pawn. So here black has moved the c pawn up, attacking the center, and now develops the knight. So white now makes the move which would probably look counterintuitive to most people. White plays knight on b to d2. It almost looks like it interferes with all the pieces. I mean, it's blocking in the blocking in the bishop. Now the bishop has nowhere to develop, and it looks like theoretically now this bishop is now undefended. And where is the knight really going? So, but what's going to happen is that white has added another attacker to the e4 square. So the bishop, attacks or is focusing on the e4 square. And now the knight is looking at the e4 square, and once the pawn is moved to e4, the knight generally in the Colle system will sort of spring out of the way, and the queen and the bishop can join in an attack. And maybe if I haven't said so, the idea behind this is a kingside attack in the Colle system. So now black makes the move bishop to e7. Personally, it's a little passive move. I would actually prefer bishop to d6, where the bishop would actually have more scope, and also having more of an influence over this e5 square. So if the bishop were on d6, it would actually have more influence in the center and look somewhat into the white's king side. Here on e7, it's primarily serving a defensive purpose. So it's considered a passive move, not an absolute terrible move, but not as active as putting the bishop on d6. So that goes into one of my philosophies of analyzing a position is keeping your pieces active, and personally, the bishop is more active on d6. And up to this point, we really haven't seen too many tactics going on. We've seen a little bit of the pawn exchanges, but that was somewhat strategical, and we've seen just a lot of strategic type moves. As we move on, we will see moves that involve tactics. So white now castles, and increasing its king safety. We now have sort of this ideal position where the knight is posted here, and we have the three pawns undisturbed. So this is a very secure position for the king. It also activates the rook, and the rook now can come to e1 to help support the pawn move e4 if necessary. Also, the queen can come to e2 to support it if necessary. Now black plays c4. And not the best of moves. The main reason is by moving the pawn forward, the bishop can just retreat. And the other problem for black is white. If black knew white's strategy of a kingside attack, the best way to meet a kingside attack is with a counter strike in the middle. By moving your pawn forward, you've sort of denied yourself of pawn exchanges in a central attack, so it's weakening the possible counter strike for black. So it looks like I'm almost out of time. I'm going to have to continue this game in the next lecture.